Okay, here we are. It is Wednesday, 17th October. This is session 5 of 12 of the World Storytelling Institute course on storytelling for therapy, counseling, and coaching. And we are going to have one or two more life stories, and then we'll begin the process of processing these stories with and for each other in a very, gentle way. Just because we're helping each other find metaphors within our stories, and also we'll apply the thinking in this book, The Mythic Path. I am about halfway through it. So now I'm going to say a few words about The Mythic Path, and also I want your opinions. I'm really shocked because I'm halfway through the book. Oh, I see Hema's box. I see Hema's rectangle. Hema! Hema! Can you hear me, Hema? Hema is in a car, sure enough. Hema, can you hear me? You can all see Hema, right? Shankar, can you see Hema? Yeah. The question is, Hema, can you hear us and can we hear you? Let me call her and just see if we can get the audio going. Nope, she dropped out. Well, she's going to give it a try. But, the highway between Coimbatore and Bangalore, I kind of doubt that she's going to have a good connection the whole time. Hello, we saw you for a few minutes there. Yeah, so try to connect again and try to do whatever you can to so you can hear our audio and we can hear your audio. Maybe turn off your video if you can, or if you want. And then when you stop, when your car stops for dinner, then maybe you can show us the video and you can tell us a story then. But I have a feeling when you're in transit, it might be better just to do audio. So do what you can. I'm not sure exactly what one has to do in order to turn on the audio, but give it a try, okay? Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so let's first talk about this book a little bit, this Mythic Path. I am more than halfway through it.
Hello.
Hema? Okay, Hema.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We can hear you. You can hear us. We can see you. Now, I was saying the highway between Coimbatore and Bangalore, we don't know if you'll get a good, strong signal the whole time, but let's give it a try. And at earliest opportunity, we want to hear your story. Now, in your car, who is in your car with you?
Okay. No one is there right now. They have gone for dinner. They have given me a privacy, like
really?
the freedom to express. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's take advantage of the opportunity. Please tell us the story of your life in 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was born in a big.
The signal froze. What do we do? The
family, the joint family.
Hema, please, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you to start from the beginning. It may be that we're going to have to wait for Hema to give us a story next week, but she's giving it an honest try, right? You got to admit it.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Why don't you start from the beginning? Probably maybe try it with no picture. Just go ahead
Yeah,
and talk to us. Go ahead.
yeah, I'll do that. So I was born in a joint family, and my father was the eldest of all. He has got six siblings, and I'm the first child, the grandchild. So I was loved by all members of the family, all elders. So I was so having the warmth and love, so nothing less of that sort. And till my age of 8, I was in the joint family, and my father had a financial, like a heavy loss in his business. So the family got separated, after which I had a feeling like we have got totally lost. So I wanted to do something to change the situation in our family. So I kept longing for it, and I kept observing somebody nearby, like my maternal uncle's family. They were coming up well, and what made them so prosperous? To know, like, uncle was trying something what he was very well thorough about as knowledge. He did start his business. Like, he was working in the transport company, and he started his own transport company. So my mother was a teacher, and my a few of the family aunts and uncles are all were teachers. So I too took up a teaching profession. After which, this longing to make my family come up like how my father was flourishing in business, so I wanted to do something on my own, and then I started a play school. And then I kept seeing like hand to mouth sort. I was calculating money a lot. After 3 years, something sparked in my mind. The parents, they come to the school considering this school as a turning point for their children. That's what I'm supposed to do. And rest all will be taken care, I thought. And then I started seeing that the core thing, what the children should get in this school. And then I, a day before yesterday, we had our 19th year completion, and we are stepping into the 20th year. When I started, it was a batch of 5 kids in the school, and now we have around 1,000 plus children, and I'm very peaceful and happy. Uh, and I take care of my teachers. Teachers are not readily available as per your thoughts or your vision for this school, and they come and learn, they get groomed here. And I'm blessed with a daughter. She is 23, and she has completed her MA for me and side for changes. That's all. And my husband, who is the pillar, sorry for not sharing about him, he is a pillar, and what to say, he's a big support for me to visualize the whatever my wish my life. He is giving a big, this is my story.
Mm-hmm. So your school has helped to transform many young people's lives, I think, to help awaken in them the joy of learning. Yes?
Exactly. I had small branch stories which I didn't share. I wanted to start a school, but I was not definite about the CBSE or matriculation and all. I did try after my post graduation. I wanted to do my civil service examination, where I couldn't get through it. Then I did sense one of my batchmate, who was a Kendriya Vidyalaya student. He got through the prelims, and he was preparing for the mains. And I did ask him, how did you get through? Like, why we couldn't and all. He said, see, I've been in KV, so the CBSE curriculum is what the people come and make money like anything. There a lot of export happens with the knitted garments, but we don't have a CBSE school at all by the time when I sent. So I wanted to start a CBSE school, which will stand for quality and skills development. And that's how I started the school, Little
Now,
Kingdom Senior Secondary
can
School.
you remember any experiences for yourself when you were a child or a teenager where you suddenly fell in love with learning?
Yeah. When I was in college, I used to be very timid. I've seen the setback of my father and all. I was not that outspoken. So when I was in college during my undergraduation, I was doing chemistry, BSc chemistry. By that time, a teacher named Ananda Parameshwari, she used to keep calling me up front and ask me to do seminar sort of thing on the board in front of the students of my batch, which made me so embarrassed because I'm not a very outspoken or a very confident person by that time. So I kept running behind her after the class gets over, and I used to uh, ask her not to call me, like, please don't call me hereafter, ma'am. I feel so embarrassed to stand in front of the students without knowing how to do it. She said, come on, Hema, your mother is a teacher. I saw your profile. You sat for this civil service exam preparation and all. You can. Why you are feeling so? Ma'am, please don't call me, I said. She said, like, you go to the library, refer these books, and she guided me strategically how to go for preparing for that particular elective. And you won't believe, I got the first place in that elective, and all my batchmates started coming asking for support to clear their papers. And that made me like a turning point in my life, that I should never give up. I should think when, like, I can. That was the turning point that made me feel I can.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
that story. And it reminds me of my own experience. I began a PhD at a very late age. I think I was about 40 years old at the University of Pennsylvania. Hema, I think put yourself on mute. Please, I hope you can keep listening to us, but put your sound on mute maybe. So I was living in New York, but I began a PhD. Here, I'm gonna try to mute Hema, but I don't know if I can. So I began a PhD in folklore at University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, which is about 2 hours away from my home in New York. And I had been out of school for some time, and beginning a PhD, I didn't really know what it meant. And University of Pennsylvania is a very big school, very old school. I was kind of intimidated. So it took me a while to, understand how people were, especially getting articles from journals, whether in the library or online. And I remember that, the first time I wrote a research paper in that process and I got a good grade, I felt so relieved. I felt, gee, I know how to do it. I can do this. I don't know if anybody in particular helped me, but there was a feeling of relief that I had discovered a method of researching and organizing and writing that, then I had a feeling maybe I could do it. And actually that reminds me, who was it? Was it Rena? Who also, you said at a certain point in your studies, yes, you had to get 563 points, right? And you studied and you did it, and that gave you confidence going forward. So it seems for many of us, we have to somehow break the ice and establish to ourselves that we can do it. And then it goes forward. Okay, great. Well, Hema, I hope you're still listening to us. And at any point, come off mute. In fact, here, yeah, at any point, come off mute and speak to us. Otherwise, if you're not with us, we'll, Hema, can you hear me?
Yeah. I will talk to you.
Wonderful. Yes. So to try to stay there, mute yourself, but of course we are recording. So if at any point you lose connection, you can listen to the recording. You can watch the recording also. Okay, I think before we even discuss this Magic Path book, we should have our final story. And again, I'll just remind what I've said to everybody, including myself. Try to zero in on one or two very specific incidents, and give us the dialogue that happened during those incidents, or even just if you thought to yourself something at that time, tell us what you were thinking to yourself at that time, because this will bring the story to life. So, Kata, are you ready? You have to unmute. There you go.
Yes.
Okay, we are all ears, as the expression goes.
So I belong to a place called Jaipur, which is in Rajasthan, and I'm talking about year in like 90s over there. So I have a joint family over there, and my grandmother and all used to be like too much of orthodox kind of people, wherein they used to have a fixed way of thinking that this is how the family should run and everything. So I always believed, that I think it's truly said. Now I can understand this thing very well, that, if you want to live the story you want to tell, so you have to design your own life accordingly. You have to do whatever you want to do. And I think I have been very lucky for that matter. I don't know what it was, but I had my own secret genie with me. I don't know from where it came, what happened, but when I was in class 10, wherein it was I had a lot of cousins over there with me in Jaipur. Everybody opted for subjects like science and all, and were into actually engineering and all. And I was being really forced by my entire family to opt for this science subject. And I knew it, that I won't be able to do anything in this stream. And I was the first member of the family, I mean, in terms of the kid, who took the steps of saying that finally I'm not going to follow this particular stream. I'm going to opt for commerce. And they asked me, what are you going to do after commerce? There's nothing. So I said, okay, let me see it. I'll figure out whatever I want to do. And I think that was the turning point, wherein the first decision I made on my own, wherein my parents, obviously, they really wanted me to get into the other streams. So I did it. I mean, everything happened in life and I started doing it. I think, I was more interested towards getting into the architecture field. And somehow I think commerce students were not allowed to do that. But again, I think this secret genie came from somewhere. And when I was in 12th standard, there was a rule by the government that commerce student who already have maths with them can opt for PET exams and go for the architecture exams. And I was lucky enough to have that. I actually sat for the exams. I cleared those exams. But by the time the results were out, it was too late. So I had to wait for a longer time. So I said, okay, I cannot, risk my entire year on this result. Let me join a college of my own interest. So none of my cousins, they ever stepped out of Jaipur. None of my cousins. And it was like, so anyway, so I took this decision that I don't want to study more in Jaipur. I want to get out of this Jaipur. Let me go to Ajmer. Let me go to Sophia College and study there. I'll live in hostel, and I want to actually experience a hostel life. it took me almost like 1 or 2 months to convince my grandmother and all other people to take this decision. But I don't know. I got that approval, and I joined the college. I was the first member of my family to actually step out. I think one thing, when the day I was leaving Jaipur, my grandmother told me very, very categorically, I would like to say in the same language the way she told me. We are actually Marwaris, so there's a Rajasthani way of talking. So I'll translate that later on. She told me when I touched her feet before I was leaving, she told me that Chori jaisi ja rahi hai, waisi wapas aa jaye. That means that the way you are leaving the house, you should come back the same way. Don't change yourself. Be the same always. You will see many people, but never change yourself. I think that was really, really a big thing for me. It was said very casually by her, but I really took that thing very seriously, and I think still it is there inside me. And so I started doing my college 3 years, graduation, full masti, nothing. I mean, as hostel life, enjoying everything. But then, okay, what's next? So I wanted to opt for an MBA in Pune in a particular college just because all my friends were there. And God knows what happened, how things came into the, in line, and everything happened the way I really wanted it to happen. So, I mean, there are so many such incidents which have happened with me, from my MBA institute to my first job, the placement day itself. I mean, even people say that you cannot choose the company you want to be in. But frankly, I'm telling you, I actually chose the company I wanted to be in. When I was in first year, I knew it, that my dream company is LG Electronics, and I really want to get into it. And I was the first girl in my college who got placed in that company. So I think, uh, it, so many such incidents in life gave me a confidence saying that whatever you want will happen. Okay, so it's just a matter of taking a decision. So if I want to actually do something in life, there's only one thing which will stop me, which is called decision: yes or no. That's it. And that, I think, if I now recall the entire life of mine, I think that's what has happened with me. I said yes, I want to go for commerce. I did that. That was just a decision. I wanted to step out of Jaipur. I did that. I want to go to Pune and study MBA. I did that. I want to get into this particular company. I did that. So I think, and obviously my marriage. I wanted to marry this person, and I married him. So I think it's just a matter of decision in life, which is a bigger learning for me. And I think I would like to share with you all. So we keep saying that, okay, luck did not, fine, it was not in our luck and something like that. So I think if you really want it, just take that decision and it will happen in your favor. So I have lived my life throughout my life that way. I think now I have a kid who's a 4-year-old boy, and I actually give him the entire space to understand things in terms of, okay, what is good, what is bad for you. But then finally, I think I would like to see him growing up with this particular philosophy in life. So once he grow up, I would like to tell him and make him understand this philosophy.
And what do you see yourself doing 5 years from now?
Okay, so one thing is very clear. I think, I've again made a small goal in life that for next 3 years, I'm gonna work in corporate field, okay, as I am doing right now. Post these 3 years, I'm gonna leave my job and do something of my own, especially into the retail side. So I would opt for a retail business and get into it, but post 3 years. So obviously after 5 years, I see myself establishing my own firm into a retail business.
Mm-hmm. And are you thinking about the storytelling in terms of human resource management, in terms of developing the culture of your organization?
See, in terms of storytelling in my organization, not for the human resource development side, but definitely I follow this methodology of storytelling for my consumers, because I'm into brand marketing. Okay, so it's more important to understand how you communicate with your consumers. So we work on, TV commercials. So there's a 30-second window given to us in which you have to tell a story about your brand. How you narrate that story to the to your consumer so that they remember you. What's the difference in the story? How you make it interesting? What kind of colloquial language you use so that people actually understand it and can relate to that story. So yes, I think what we are discussing right now would exactly not get applied over there. But yes, the methodology of storytelling gets applied everywhere, whatever I do in my company.
Wonderful. Okay. So now we've had stories from all 7 of you participants and me. Kata and Hema, I don't know if you watched the recording from last week, but I also told my my story. So now we have, now we're going to process these stories together, especially this week, next week, the week after, and we won't stop. But beginning a few weeks from now, I want you to try to find a volunteer, so who you can guide through this process. And probably it will be somebody who does not feel that she needs healing or therapy. Probably it'll be someone who is just interested in developing herself and improving herself. I've been thinking of different mottos for what I do, and one motto that is really standing out is we can help your dreams come true, or your dreams can come true. The first step is really know your dreams, explore your dreams. Bring your dreams to consciousness. Then the dream has a good chance of coming true, or it has a better chance of coming true. So we'll get to work on that. I was very struck, Kata, by your metaphor of a genie. The genie was helping you, has been helping you along the way.
I really don't know, Eric. I mean, what it is exactly. I think maybe it could be in a form of a blessings of my elders. It could be anything. But there is something which never stops me from, doing things what I really want to do. I think, touch wood, but it actually happens with me, which I'm sharing with you all. Mm-hmm. So once I decide that I want to do it, it happens with me. So I take it as a blessing from my elders who have given me. So I think
I'm sure
it could be that. So
it's partly from your elders, but it's also, in stories, in grandmother stories, a genie will help a person. Like if the person frees the genie from a bottle, the genie will help that person. But my sense is this genie is helping you because you are so self-possessed. You have this confidence in yourself and this respect for yourself. So somehow the genie is responding to that. And, I think the genie is a symbolic, metaphorical, just representation of your own self-confidence and self-possession. But it's a nice metaphor. It's a nice metaphor for that. You feel the force is with you.
Exactly.
Did I mention that expression yet? In the Star Wars movies, everyone is always saying, "May the force be with you." And where that is coming from is the thinking of Joseph Campbell, who was a friend of George Lucas, who directed those Star Wars movies. And I don't know, did I mention that Joseph Campbell model of story, The Heroic Path? Should I mention it again? Give me feedback. Should I? Rena, did I mention about the heroic path as described by Joseph Campbell? Not sure?
I don't really remember.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let me tell it again. Um, According to Joseph Campbell, the classic archetypal universal story of a epic hero or heroine is that the story starts where things are peaceful, but they're too peaceful because the authorities are keeping us down. They won't give us freedom. Everything is too regimented. They are dominating us. So, you know, most people go along with it because they are, you know, but amongst us are certain future heroes and heroines who we just can't take it. So we jump into the ocean and swim. And we have faith that Mother Nature will take care of us. We go into the jungle, and we have faith that the lions and tigers will be our friends. We go on some quest, perhaps for the Fountain of Youth or some special amulet, something that represents our connection with the divine or our connection with our inner self. And when we find it, then the force is with us, you see? And now nothing can stop us. So we can go back to our native place and overthrow the tyrant and institute the heaven on earth, and we're all going to live happily ever after. That's his idea of a story. So see if this fits your life at all, your fantasy of your life at all, the story that you're going to create for yourself. It's just one of many different models of stories. Okay, so you have the genie as a metaphor. Who was it who had the character who told the emperor that the emperor had no clothes? I think that was, who was it? You know the story I'm talking about where the emperor has no clothes, but nobody says anything.
Yeah.
Was that Usha or Rina?
Not me.
No, it must have been you, Rina.
No, that.
No?
No.
Oh, no,
No.
Maushami. Yes. Maushami, are you with us? Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you mentioned that character the other day, right? Of the one who
Yes.
points out that the emperor has no clothes.
Yes, I did. Yes.
And that is a metaphor for being a truth teller. And as you say, sometimes you are very blunt, and
Yes.
sometimes it gets you in trouble.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's happened at times.
Yeah, and you know, we all know that there's the expression that truth and knowledge are there, but it takes wisdom to know when to speak truth and how to speak truth.
Exactly.
Yes, so we are all improving our wisdom as we go along. Okay, so you have that character as a metaphor for yourself, and as you mentioned, that character is actually can be considered an archetype. An archetype is a fancy word for a character that is, or an incident or something that is universal in human culture. And it clearly did not begin one place and spread, but it has just come up in different cultures. And that is true about this character who bursts people's bubbles, you know, who is a truth teller. Maybe it's a jester, maybe it's a trickster, but who brings people down to earth when they're being pretentious. And so I think, Maushami, it's good if you build on that character. Okay, so now let's take a look at this Mythic Path book. As I say, I'm more than halfway through it, and I'm absolutely shocked that there is no mention of mythology. You know, as we think of the word mythology, that's going to be stories about Shiva or stories about any god or goddess, right? That is the first meaning of mythology. In the West, myth is considered stories about really how the world was created and really before human history began. We consider mythology as how the world was created before human history. So I was shocked, I am shocked to find that in the Mythic Path book, there is no mention of, so far, almost no mention of any divine characters. What there is instead is the idea that each one of us has a mythic, a worldview. What they're really talking about is each one of us has a worldview, an understanding of how the world works, and an explanation of what is going on, and if I behave in a certain way, a certain thing will happen. So here, let me get my notes for a second. He's talking about myth as a basic assumption of both about how one behaves, how people treat you. See, some people have the assumption that one is going to get abused, that people are out to get me, and that I'm going to be abused. Another person might have a myth: I can do it. I can overcome any challenge. So that's it, first of all. So he's saying, first of all, we have to become aware of what our assumptions are about life. Bhavani Shankar, you, in your story, both your older brother at some point and at some point people on the job were trying to be dominating. And it seems part of your worldview is that one has to learn how to handle it when people try to be dominating. And your vision of yourself is that you have gotten a pretty good handle on it, and now you want to teach others how to handle it when people try to be dominating. Is that kind of accurate? Mm-hmm. So it's so he's using the word myth as our own understanding of what is going on in our existence, the creation of our own world, our own personality, and our own struggle and our own path through life. That's why he's using the word myth. I don't really understand yet why he's using the word myth, because really he's talking about one's assumptions about oneself, the people around you, and your culture. But there it is. One of his points is that it's good to have a guide. It's kind of common sense. But as part of your personal mythology, it's good to remember or create a character who is an older figure, a wise figure who can guide you through life, or at least at certain times. Do each one of you have a character like that who comes to mind? Especially maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, maybe a mentor in the business world. Kata, what about you? Does anything come to mind? Is there any individual who especially has been an important mentor to you? See, you're so self-assured. I think you have been your own mentor. But aside from yourself, has anyone else helped along the way?
I don't know. I mean, there have been a lot of challenges from everywhere. So, but yeah, I think I don't want to say parents, because parents, obviously, they are with me across all my decisions. So I don't want to name them. I really don't know. I think I would say that I could.
Okay,
Yeah.
leave it open for now. What it's suggested in this book is that each one of us might develop an imaginary relationship with an inner guide, and that inner guide, in a sense, will be an aspect of our own personality, but we can personify that old wise man or old wise woman. We can personify it as a character who, at certain times, we can talk to, keeping in mind that it's only an aspect of our own personality. But the old wise man, the old wise woman, it is one of the most famous archetypes in stories around the world. And so he's saying it's useful as you develop your personal mythology to have a person like that. And he especially suggests that you visualize walking in a forest, walking in a nature area, and walking through the forest, and you come to a certain tree, and this old wise man or old wise woman is standing there in front of a tree. And the two of you introduce yourselves to each other, and you can ask that figure questions, or that figure might give you advice. And you know that in the future, if you ever feel a need to, I don't know, in those, like Alcoholics Anonymous groups, they talk about my higher wisdom or my higher self. This old man or old woman can be a metaphor for your own wisdom. So keep that in mind as a possible character in a story that you might develop. Kata, actually, you mentioned the genie, right?
Yes.
So I think that genie is that character. That genie is playing a similar role of that character. Shankar, you mentioned you have a trainer in transactional analysis who read your work and gave you feedback. Is that mentor an important figure in your imagination now?
Yeah, actually, each and every stage of life, you see, there was one person who really impressed me, the way he has done. So I take it inside that he is my mentor. So I keep in touch with him. For example, when I did my 10th standard, I had one teacher called Alaga my man, because the other teachers were telling this fellow will not pass his 10th standard itself. But she's the teacher who actually told us studies is not the only thing. There are lots beyond studies. So it's not that difficult to actually, go ahead and clear your 10th. And then I somehow cleared my 10th because of her motivation and her way of teaching. So when I analyze myself, how I actually see a teacher, or how I actually take inside that this particular person can be a teacher, is whenever the teacher who actually relates the concept with the outside world and teaches it, I became a friend of them, or I accept them as my teacher or mentor or something like that. So if a teacher comes, just writes on board saying that you just need to copy blah 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 everything, I am dumb. I will straight away walk, and I will say, "Ma'am, I won't even, get much interaction with the teacher." So 10th I had Algamai ma'am. 12th I had somebody called Rosemary. She was the principal, and she guided me across. And even though there were certain difficulties in understanding the accounts part, she helped me out. And in college, I had Vijay Lakshmi ma'am. She's the HOD of our department. And now in transaction analysis in this stream, I have Dr. Susan George. So she actually helped me to actually get inside more, see what are the parental or child contamination which I have within, and clear all those things so that, I can move to autonomous living and go and always stay in an adult position, any situation I handle. So those things I have done. And another thing is, after writing my diploma, that is my TA diploma, I was able to actually understand even more because each and every concept, when I actually relate it inside and understands, I really thank Susan ma'am, because she is the person who actually took me the next level constantly. So thank you for
Mhm.
all.
So you have all of these real life guides. You
Yes.
don't really need an imaginary one.
Yes.
But I think you're in a good position now if you ever need to imagine or create a guide character. You have many good models that
Yes.
you can call upon. Now, a premise of this Magic Path book is that each one of us has the mythology that we were born into, both in terms of religion and culture and our self-attitude that we learned from people around us. And then we also have an emerging new mythology that may be in conflict with the original one. So I've been trying to apply this to my own life. It's a little bit abstract. I don't really get it, but I wanted to ask you, what is this contrast that you have mentioned a few times now between past contamination and now autonomous living? What is that distinction? And then what is the transformation that is needed to go from contamination to autonomy?
First thing is self-awareness. Okay, these things are basically more of a subconscious level. With the conscious mind, you can't understand what is your contamination. So how I do is, each and every day I actually analyze the situation, what I have done. Did I fight with somebody? Why did I fight? So then once slowly going back, I was able to find out, okay, I have seen my dad fighting like this in the roadside, or I have seen my dad fighting like this with me. So as a child, I have picked up certain things like that, and I have incorporated myself. So this is the first learning which I got. So, and then I just want to know how I am going to change myself and how I am actually going to, move out. So there are certain models called game. Okay, so we keep playing games. So even though we try to come out, we cannot come out, because we again move as a persecutor, victim, and rescuer. We always play inside. So I took up a conscious decision saying that no, I'm not going to do this. So from a persecutor, I need to come out. So what I did consciously, whenever I had any problem, which I would actually do it in the same way, I had another method of actually solving the problem. Or I'll just give you an example. Okay, I'm just going in a vehicle. Okay, so by mistake I hit a person. Okay, if it would have been a previous me, I would have just go shout at him, what the hell you're driving, blah blah blah, all those things I would do. But now what I see is, since I fought, if I'm going to fight, I'm not going to get my vehicle back, or I'm not going to reverse my damage. So I'm just going to see that how I can take it to the next step, or how I can do it in the next step, so that my inner conscious and my inner stability is maintained. So I just say, why don't you go slow? Please don't follow. This is something to the person who has hit me, and it is more of an adult to adult communication instead of a child to parent or parent to child communication. So another thing is, whenever your transaction is crossed, okay, for example, I am talking from an adult and you talk from a parent, we won't have a good relationship. So we need to have a continuous relationship. That's only when you come from an adult and I come from an adult. So these type of models really help me out to understand more and move to an autonomy.
Great. And the challenge for you now in this course is to somehow take these complex ideas and make a story out of it. With a character who may be a boy, or maybe a fox or a bear, but it may be a human character or whatever. But somehow the development that has to happen from contamination to autonomy, we want to embody that process in a story. So that story then will remind you and remind others what needs to be done in terms of self-development.
So is it like an imaginary story wherein the person with a contamination has moved to an autonomy? Is it like that, or
It's an imaginary story
okay.
in which the character moves from, in TA language, from contamination to autonomy.
Mm.
So on the level of, the actual character, it's imaginary. But the actual process of needing to move from this old condition to the new condition, that is very realistic.
Yes.
So the outer shell of the story is, is fictional, but the actual action is very realistic. And you have one interesting thing about your life is that you are both very independent-minded, and you don't like regimentation.
Yes.
You don't like a lot of institutionalization.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you function pretty well within institutions.
Yes.
And you became secretary during your college days. You were secretary of commerce, or you navigate well within institutions. So that is a wonderful thing to be able to have both of those points of view and abilities, both the insider and the outsider.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Let's see. So we're just going to go around now, and each one of us, let's see if we can say any thoughts about what your old mythology was and what your new mythology is, what you're trying to evolve towards. Bhavani Shankar, you have told us clearly that what you are trying to evolve towards is helping people deal with domination.
Exactly.
And you yourself, through your own life experience, have gone through a journey. In your younger days, perhaps you reacted in an angry way sometimes. You didn't handle it in the best way. But through your experience and your thinking and your studies, you now feel that you have discovered a method, or a number of methods of how to deal with it in a better way, and you are ready to teach the young generation on how to handle it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the story that you would develop would both be about this character who has gone through this transformation in himself, and what he has learned, and now how he is ready to use these methods to teach other people these methods. So this is a classic before and after story. Before he had his realization, he was trapped in cycles of aggression and revenge. But then he realized how to break out of it and how not to respond to other people's domination. And now you or your character can handle it better, and you're ready to teach other people. So see if you can shape this into a story about a character who, in the early part of the story, he doesn't handle the situations well. Choose one situation that happened with your brother, or one that happened on the job. That's a vivid example of entering into the anger instead of avoiding the anger. And then what happened to help that character realize that he was making a mistake, and then to develop a new method of handling it. It reminds me of the story of the Buddha. I'm here with all these statues of the Buddha. His situation was that he wanted to break out of the cycle of life and death, or he wanted a philosophy that would help people break out of that suffering comes from attachment. So then he said, well, okay, we must not attach ourselves to anything, and then we will avoid the suffering. So he had a certain revelation, and then he taught others this revelation. So we need a story from you about a character who also has a revelation, but what triggers that revelation? For the Buddha, it was that he saw suffering all around him, right? And he said, there's no family. Every family has suffered these terrible diseases diseases and all. So then he came to realize that it's the nature of existence that we're going to die and that we're going to suffer. So the only way out is to avoid attaching ourselves as much as possible. Okay.
Sure, I'll do that.
Rena, let me find my notes. I took a look at the recordings just before, and it might be useful for each one of you to write down the words you spoke in your story. And then you can study it, like as a piece of literature. You also have had a genie helping you, because you wanted to go, you wanted to leave Kashmir, and you did, despite your parents' protests. But then it ended up being a very helpful thing for your family, because they followed you to New Delhi, right? Yeah,
so I relate a lot to Katha, actually. I really can't actually think of any mentor helping me, or
okay.
I don't know, it's the inner strength which has always played a very big role, in whatever I wanted to do, I was able to do.
Okay, so if you didn't have one in real life, you really might imagine one. You call it your inner strength. You might personify your inner strength as a character, maybe as a lady character. And it might help if you imagine finding her in a forest. I guess the forest idea is to identify her with nature, with the renewal of nature, with the continuity of nature. But that kind of guide character might be useful in a story. Well, what do you feel? What for the next stage of your development? What needs to happen now? This is the question that will drive really any life story and inspirational story of yourself or a client. What needs to happen next? What do you want to happen next? In what way is your life incomplete now?
So Eric, as I said, those 20 years I was just running, chasing, from one milestone to another milestone. And now, last 3-4 years, I want more fulfillment. I want more happiness. I think I was chasing and I was able to achieve all those milestones. So it's a transformation in itself, these last 4 years. I'm not thinking, to get X salary, to reach this position, to do these things, to have a nationwide. Now I don't think like that. The good part is that now my direction has changed.
Okay, so you have had the transformation.
Yeah.
You have had the revelation. So your story, to be inspirational to you and to remind you of where you are and to be inspirational to others, your story would be about a character who worked for 20 years, even in a field that she didn't want to work in totally. But actually you said about sales that you were sort of afraid of it. And then you made a point of attacking it. Just because you were afraid of it, you thought, okay, this is a challenge. You took it up as a challenge.
Absolutely. And I excelled in that.
Mm-hmm.
I really excelled in all those 20 years that I was selling. Initially, I was really didn't want to get into sales. Mm-hmm. But then God gave me that, and I said,
okay, God or a genie or your inner self, God and genies help people who attack their problems and overcome their problems like this. It said, God helps those who help themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it is such a healthy thing to be able to recognize and go after one's weak points and, make an effort and be brave and follow through. So this is part of your story, which is going to be inspirational to yourself and to others. So try, as in the other stories that we've been discussing, try to identify what triggered the transformation. Was it just after 20 years you got fed up? Or was there a particular conversation? Did you see a river? Did you see a butterfly? what was the symbolic breaking point where you decided that things have to change? See if you
So
can.
I'll be honest, Eric, it wasn't planned.
I know, but
So I-
with a transformation like that, there are things that happen along the way. People will say, "I saw a butterfly. I saw a sunset. I saw a child." For the Buddha, he saw people, their bodies deteriorating and rotting, and that's what gave him the idea to change his life and develop a new philosophy. So either try to remember what made the change in you, what triggered the change in you, or make it up. Make it up for a fictional character of what wakes her up after all the years of, going on a certain path, which she needed to do for her own development and to support her family and all. But at a certain point, I think you or someone else said, I had done so many things for other people. Now I needed to do something for me. So when we get...
For me, the
go
transformation
ahead.
came, I started doing this art-based therapy. So when I initiated this whole thing, I didn't know, where this path was leading me. And I spent, some 8-9 months with these children at risk. And when I was writing the research report, that is when I realized, oh my God, I really impacted these lives. Maybe that was for me a point when I thought, okay, now this is what I'm really going to get into, where I can really impact lives.
But what gave you the idea to start studying art-based therapy? That's not a very common thing. Try to remember.
Yeah,
it wasn't conscious. Okay, and maybe there was no particular moment in your life, but in a story, make a moment.
Okay.
Make a turning point. Okay, and Moshimi. Yes, Moshimi. For you, you said the big transformation in your life was from victimhood to feeling heroic. And that came just when a friend of yours said, "Oh, you're so brave."
Yeah.
So that was the transformation in your personal mythology. Up to that point, you had been like Jesus Christ on the cross, suffering.
Yeah.
But then suddenly you transformed into a happier, healthier, stronger, more functional person. So see. Yes, this session ends at 9:30. I'm getting a reminder from my fan club back here. Okay, so you see, each of you, what you're looking for in a inspirational or healing story is a turning point, a symbolic transformation point where you give up your old mythology of I'm a victim, I'm doing something I don't want to do, but I have to keep doing it. I've lost my creativity. I'm a prisoner, I'm a slave. And you may still be in that. Some of you may still be in that state. I'm not sure, though I think most of you have broken out of it already, actually. Probably by the time you take a course like this, you've broken out of it. But what we're interested in is the breakout, the liberation. Because that will remind you going forward of what you have broken out of, and it will also serve as an inspirational story to others. Let's see. Usha, for you really wanted to do that tiger dance, right? You wanted to paint yourself and paint your body and go out and do that tiger dance, and your family would not let you. I think, in many of our stories, there has been parents who were conservative, who were trying to be protective, but were also not permitting us to blossom into ourselves, find ourselves. So in your personal mythology, you want to identify when and where you broke out. And you said even at that time, you were able to go to a neighbor's house and paint yourself, be painted as a tiger and do it. So even then you were able to. And then, let's see, you were kidnapped, and your response to that was wanting to be a police person to catch kidnappers. So that was also very proactive. And now you're working with NGOs. Okay, so you also have, I think almost all of you have made the transition from living your life as other people thought you should live your life now, and you did that for a long time. Now you're doing it the way you feel you should do it. You have found yourselves. So I think most of you are teachers, trainers, therapists. I think all of you are involved in helping other people make this transition. And part of the way you can help them is to come up with a story growing out of your own experience, but that will also be a model, a guide for them to follow. So anybody, does anyone have any comments, questions about what we've spoken about today?
Eric, I have a viewpoint over here. In my scenario, okay, so whatever has happened, okay, so I think one major thing which I'm realizing is that it's the challenge which I used to take on. If somebody in my family says that I should not take it as a challenge, that why they think that I cannot do it. And I used to make them prove that, yes, I can do it. Okay, so that what has happened for quite a longer time, the kind of decisions I have taken. I wanted to move out. My grandmother used to say that our family girls will not move out of Jaipur. So I took that stand. No, I will actually go out and study, and I will show you that things remain the same. Okay, so I think, but now, when I was answering you about the 5 years down the line and everything, I think there's a very thin line change between what happened previously and now. The way I plan and see things is, it's more of a mature decision which I'm taking. Okay, I know what I want to do in life. That's like very clear to me, and I'm going to achieve it. I even know that. Okay, I'm confident enough to do that. But I'm going to do it after 3 years because of this reason is a mature decision which I'm taking now. If this would have been Katha like years back, Wali Katha, so I think I would have taken this decision in a jiff. Okay, so I really want to do it. I'll leave my job. Let me get into the business. Why I should wait for 3 years? But there's something which I think maybe it could be the responsibilities, maybe it could be the family that I'm thinking in mind that, okay, so I should take more of a mature decision. So I think that there is a difference. The challenges which I used to take, and now in terms of the mature decisions which I'm taking. The process is same. I know what I want to achieve. I really want to achieve that, and I will achieve that. But the only difference is that now it's
fantastic, and that actually is recommended by the Mythic Path book, because what he is saying is that what we're really aiming toward is a compromise, a synthesis of the old myth and the new myth, where you don't totally discard the conservative and the old-fashioned point of view, but you combine it in a reasonable way with your own.
You mold yourself.
Yes. So you don't have to totally throw away the old system, but you incorporate it alongside and in teamwork with your new system. So I would recommend to you to do some role playing, either with yourself or get a partner. You're saying you want to leave Jaipur. Your grandmother said, no, you cannot leave Jaipur. Why do you want to leave? What do you want to study? Let me be your grandmother for a moment. Why do you want to leave? What do you want to study?
I want to explore the world. I cannot be here in Jaipur and study the way my sisters are studying. So I really want to get out of this Jaipur and I want to see how the world is.
But your family won't be there to protect you. Men will take advantage of you. You could be destroyed.
I should have confidence in me. You should have confidence in me. I'll take care of myself.
You don't know the ways of the world. You're just,
Let me learn it. Let me learn it. I will fail once. I'll fail twice. But the third time I will succeed into it. So give me that confidence.
Okay, now let's reverse roles. And you tell me, you be your grandmother, and you give some of the reasons that she would give that you cannot do it. Okay, grandmother, I want to travel to a different place. I want to study different things. Why are you so afraid that bad things will happen to me?
Oh, this is the world. You don't know how people are. You should stay here. You don't know what happened to X person when that person left Jaipur. And, so it's better that you stay in Jaipur, be with us, be in front of us. Let us guide you how you should, because you are so young. You cannot leave right now. Okay, so I think give 2-3 years more and then we'll talk about this again.
I can't wait.
It's not the right. No, but it's not the right time to leave. Don't leave right now. So I won't be there. Your parents won't be there. Okay, who will teach you what is right, what is wrong?
You have taught me. I have internalized. I hear your voice even when you're not with me.
You're too young to understand what is right and what is wrong. So I'm if I'm giving you some advice, please understand why I'm giving it.
Okay, excellent. So each one of you try to develop a little, some internal dialogues like that at crucial times in the story that you're going to make up, or the story of your life story, where you really bring the characters to life. And really, you are the one who can play both characters best, right? Because you, Kata, you know what you said and what you were thinking, and you know what your grandmother said, and you have a pretty good idea of what she was thinking. So you can switch back and forth, play the different roles, and bring out all of the issues. Okay, anyone else? Any thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, I think this process is called as two-chair therapy. So wherein we make one person to sit in one chair, another person acts as the person who is actually victimized or something like that.
What name did you call it? The empty chair? What did you call this method?
Two-chair therapy.
Two-chair therapy.
Yeah.
It has many names.
Yeah.
It is used in this field of psychodrama. It was developed even by Carl Jung 110 years ago. He called it creative imagination, engaging with your imagination in an active way by talking to real characters and also imaginary characters. In Gestalt therapy, they call it the empty chair method. I think in TA, they call it the two-chair method. But it is a very popular method around the world in many different styles of psychology. Yes.
Yeah, it actually brings your anger down in seconds, because once you sit in their place and you just put their shoe and see how they actually feel, how actually their thoughts and emotions are expressed, your anger will just come down drastically. So that is one of the methods which can be used even for anger management.
Because you see it from their point of view and you understand their anxiety.
Yes.
You know, Kata, your grandmother had a lot of anxiety and a lot of love for you, and she wanted to protect you. But we all know that kind of protection can also sometimes smother a person and prevent a person from living. So we have to work out a compromise. Anyone else? Comments, questions about any of this?
No.
Are you feeling confident about being able to compose a story?
Yes.
We've talked about metaphors. We've talked about creating a character that represents you. Now we've talked about old belief system, new belief system, breaking away from the old, but then maybe incorporating some of the old with the new. but most of all, I'm hoping that you have a sense of why you would be creating a inspirational or healing story for yourself. You know, to me, it seems neat to be able to bring up these issues, put them in a story in a way that reminds you what you're about, and point you in the right direction. But I'm hoping that all of you feel that there's a point to it also. What do you think?
Eric, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Why don't we hear your story? Then we'll have better ideas, actually.
My story, okay, and I should,
Story, so
yes,
tell us a story.
well, okay, before I go back to my story, I want to tell you a inspirational story that was made up by a client of a student in this class last year, which is my favorite healing story to date. This situation was the client, she had been a lonely child, in part because her mother had a lot of depression. Her mother would lock herself in her room and wouldn't come out for long periods of time. And I think eventually her mother went into a mental hospital. So her mother was not available. Although her mother did give her a lot of books. But her mother kind of withdrew from the picture. So this girl, I think at the age of 9, she had a bunny rabbit. Did I mention, I don't know if I mentioned this story. Did I mention? I mentioned it?
Yeah,
But I'm going to mention it again because in this context, I want to remind you of what these kind of stories can be. At the age of 9, she had a bunny rabbit. The bunny rabbit died. She buried the bunny rabbit by herself, which meant to her that she was strong. And then later she wrote a letter of request to get into a school, and she was accepted. So again, she was strong and she did it. And then the real incident of okay, that was the real life of the client. Then the story that the client made up was that a ship of women came to her, and they had beautiful long silver hair and beautiful long clothing, and they had rings and jewelry relating to this rabbit. And they looked up at the moon, and the rabbit was on the moon. So the women invited her to come with her on the ship, that they would take her on a journey, they would bring her back, and she said yes. So this story to me helped her. My understanding was it helped the person who created it compensate for the loss of her mother, and somehow transform that into, but at least she has a community of women around her, and she has the universe around her, which is symbolized by this rabbit. Okay, that's one type of healing or inspirational story. For me, most of you heard my life story last week, right? And what I was struck by my life story was that there was not much connection between the story as I told it and the issue that I raised, right? The issue that I raised is that I feel I need to work through some of my anger. That my anger, sometimes I blurt out in an angry way, that's not good. And I mentioned that I especially love the story of Silapadigara, of Kannagi. And probably one reason I feel connected to that story, and that story is a metaphor for me, is that she also gets angry. Do all of you know the story? Some of you may. The king kills her husband unjustly. And she goes to the king and proves to the king that he had killed her husband unjustly. And when she proves it, he takes his own life. He lays down and stops breathing, stops his blood pressure. But still she's not satisfied. She's angry at the people that some of the people had mocked her in the town. And she walked around the city 3 times, and she suggested to the god of fire that the whole city should burn. But good people and animals should escape. So some of those good people walked with her, according to one legend, walked with her towards the western mountains, near the border with Kerala and Karnataka. And they started a new tribe there in the jungle. So I think I relate to Kanagi's anger. That, you know, her big line is, Yeniku needy venam, I want justice. En kanavan kalvan ille. My husband was not a thief. So when I feel abused, when I feel I'm a victim, I also say, I'm not going to stand for this. You're not going to make a victim out of me. And I blow up, and but I go too far sometimes. You know, the whole art of anger management, which I know you're going to also work with, Bhavani Shankar, is that we need to protect ourselves. We need to assert ourselves, but we should not lash out. We should not, we should not get revenge. We should just, stop the circle of violence. So, okay, so I relate to Kanagi. Now, why do I have this situation where sometimes I respond to aggression with aggression, or aggression that I perceive as aggression? I don't think I touched that in my life story, right? I just told you I had a wonderful childhood. I admired my mother very much. I loved New York City. And then I came to Tamil Nadu. So I did not touch why I have a weakness to fly into an anger sometimes. So I think, maybe that's a little private, a little personal. I have to think about that. But in any case, I have to come up with a story about a character who, on various levels, in various ways, learns about how he became this way and how he can change and why he should change. And, it's easy to show the negative results of behaving in this way. That I can do. But what I really need to work on is why I became this way to some extent. The whole idea of psychotherapy is to return to the scene of the crime and see how one developed defense mechanisms as a child that now maybe have turned into negative habits. So that's some work I have to do, and I will share it with you, to some extent, and I will certainly share with you the story that I come up with about how the character works his way out of that situation. And I think my story might have a little bit in common with your story, Bhavani Shankar, because your character, both in your real life and in the story that you might create at the beginning, gets caught up in angry situations and only slowly learns how to not get caught up. Okay, so that's enough of my story for now. Okay, so Hema, have you been with us this whole time?
Yeah, I have been listening, every one of you.
Wonderful. And are you approaching Coimbatore?
No, not yet.
Still have a long way to go. Okay, so now we're going to close the session. This was recorded, so I'll put it online in a couple of minutes. And shall we? Okay, so now shall we stop?
And when you said this transformational TA thing, this one story came to my mind. The old lady in the vinegar bottle.
The old
if the
lady in
end
the
is going,
bottle. What happens in that story?
Yeah. If that end is going to change, and that is also a very transformative thing I felt that I wanted to share.
Okay, maybe by email or next time, tell us about that story, that old lady who lives in a vinegar bottle. And all of you do come up with grandmother stories, episodes of epics that relate to your story in some way. We already have a few of them. The genie, the character who tells the emperor has no clothes. So I want to thank. Okay, now first let's stop the recording. Okay, let's stop the recording.